Hello, hello. We are back for another exciting day. Day 3. We will get started. Um, we're just going to do a recap at the beginning of this day. We won't do a recap on every day. Day 1, of course, opening for both sides. Some legal banter. Day 2, they did get into some testimony with the dad's girlfriend's son, the 7-Eleven employee, the 911 operator, and then we had the 911 supervisor lady who works at the 911, I guess, coordinator lady that has more insight on different calls or how the system works. Basically, they're trying to get some evidence in through her. We'll find out today if they do or not. Surprise, surprise, or spoiler alert. Judge is pretty pro prosecution on this one. So we'll be hearing from her again. We heard from, again, day 2, we still heard from the neighborhood watch lady. She coordinated with Mr. Zimmerman on getting the neighborhood watch set up. Then we heard from the HOA president, basically saying he didn't think we needed it, da-da-da-da-da. No neighborhood watch, I'm not part of it. HOA had nothing to do with it. Some interesting things were that the neighborhood was neighborhood was rather large, but I don't know if the areas in question were more clustered in a certain area. Maybe they'll get into that. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But given the large amount of people that were in these neighborhoods or in this particular neighborhood, they said there was about 200 to 300 residents in this neighborhood, and probably only 20 to 25 people showed up at this neighborhood watch meeting. I wonder if it was just more of the ones that had been affected or directly or indirectly affected by the recent break-ins and whatnot. So maybe overall, the HOA as a whole didn't think they needed it, but those few did. I don't know. They haven't really zeroed in on that exactly. But then we heard from one of the first responding officers that was there on scene. He administered CPR on Trayvon. Then we heard from the crime scene tech who, took pictures, collected the evidence, swabbed for prints, dusted for prints, that type of thing. And then we got into a resident of the neighborhood. So a neighbor, an eyewitness neighbor. And she got up there and said what she had seen and her account and memory of what she had seen. And the defense got a little excited because she came up with a little detail that she had not mentioned previously in any of her depositions or any of her witness statements or anything like that. And I mean, she had given quite a few witness statements prior to this trial, and her saying, it sounded like they were running and they were running, but she never said they were running from right to left or left to right or whatever it is she said. But today, or that day, she said a specific direction. And she claims, well, I don't know why it wasn't noted which way I said they were running, because I know I said it. But in none of them is it reported that she said that. So, anyhow, let's get into it. Let me do this. Racha. We skipped over jury instructions and all of the goodness and that nonsense. So,
Do you solemnly swear affirm that your testimony in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, thank you.
and I believe this is another neighbor.
You may proceed.
Thank you.
So another.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
If you could state your name and spell your last name
Eyewitness.
for the record, please.
Yes, it's Jane
Or
Surdyka,
witness.
Surdyka.
Are you working at this time, ma'am?
No, I'm not.
Okay. How long have you been unemployed?
For a
I
couple
don't
months.
really know why these
And
questions
can
are
you briefly
relevant.
tell us about your prior work experience?
Certainly. I'm a recreation therapist, and I was working at Halifax Psychiatric Hospital and also working with behavioral care with adult and teenagers and children.
And had you previously also been a teacher?
I
at
could get why
middle
those
school?
questions are
Yes, I
relevant
was a teacher
for.
for over 10 years.
Can you briefly
Like
tell
when
us
you're
about your
trying
educational
to-
background?
Certainly, my undergraduate degree is in health, physical education, recreation, and I went to graduate school in exercise physiology.
And your undergraduate degree was from University of Florida?
Yes,
And how about your graduate degree?
UCF.
Okay. Did you also qualify for the Olympics at some point in your life?
Qualify them
During the
as
80s,
a,
when I was running and
expert
they had
or
a marathon in the Olympic Games, I
but
would have
just
been
a
the top
regular
three
person, like
And
you don't
were
need to
those
go
the
into
Olympics
all
that
of
were
these
boycotted?
questions.
Yes, sir.
Seems redundant and
Are you married,
ridiculous and
No,
And do you have
a
any
waste
children?
of time.
no.
Like,
I'm not
are
going to
you
ask you for
married?
your
Do
current
you have a
address,
waste
but
of
do you live
time?
in
Like,
Seminole County,
are you
Florida?
married? Do you
Yes,
have
sir.
kids? Like, that's
I
personal.
want to draw
Why
your
do I
attention
need to
back to
keep-
February
Why do I
of
need to tell you those things?
2012. Back in February of 2012, were you living at the retreat at Twin Lakes?
Yes,
And in February of 2012, approximately how many years had you been living there?
that would be 4 years.
Were you living by yourself?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else in the house other than a cat?
No, just the cat,
And what is the cat's name?
Leo.
Like,
I want to draw
fuck
your
does it matter
attention
what
to
her
specifically
cat's name
February
is?
26th of 2012, a Sunday evening. Were you living at the address of 3021 Retreat View Circle?
Yes,
And is that a townhome, ma'am?
yes.
Can you briefly describe the townhome? Are the bedrooms upstairs and the rest of the town living compartments or rooms, I should say, downstairs?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. How many bedrooms are
Apartments?
upstairs?
3.
Okay. And the bedrooms, specifically the master bedroom, was it facing the front or the back of the residence?
The back of the residence.
And does the master bedroom have a window that faces out into what's been referred to as a dog walk or a sidewalk that sits between two buildings?
Yes,
Okay. Do you normally keep that window open for your cat, Leo?
I normally keep the blinds open about a foot or so because there's a cat ledge at that window where my cat lays and looks out the window to the courtyard.
Okay. Does that window also have a screen?
Yes,
Okay. So I want to draw your attention to that Sunday evening, February 26th of 2012. Were you home that evening?
yes.
And approximately at around 7:10 p.m., what were you doing?
Well, I came upstairs and I just finished taking my shower. I was going to lay down on the bed and read a book, waiting for my British sitcom to come on. So I didn't have any volume on my television.
Okay. So let's make sure the jury understands completely the setting that you were in. You were in your master bedroom?
Yes.
Okay.
A British
And,
sitcom.
You said you took a shower. Tell me in terms of the volume on the TV. I don't understand that. Was the TV on, but the volume wasn't on?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And you were laying on the bed, or were you sitting down, or were you standing up?
I was laying on the bed, getting ready to read.
Okay. At that time,
Get
did
ready to
something draw your
read and
attention
watch the
outside of your
British
residence?
sitcom.
Well, first, I heard it just started bucketing down with rain, so I had the window open. So I got up and I closed the window.
Okay. So you had the window open for Leo?
Yes,
Okay. And so when you say you
Oh,
physically
look at
got up
there. I
and
got
actually
an
put the
avatar
window
now.
down,
Yes.
and are these the windows that, not like the old fashioned jealousy, these actually just come
I
down?
figured it out.
correct.
Okay. All right. And when you put the window down, did you go back to on the bed, or where did you proceed to from there?
I got up and I put the window down. And when I turned around to get, sit back on my bed to read, I heard loud voices.
Okay. At that time, you mentioned the weather condition, that it was raining outside. Can you also tell us whether it was dark or whether it was light outside?
It would be dark at that time in February.
And you mentioned that something got your attention when you heard voices. Could you tell whether there was one or two individuals, or three or four? Could you tell how many individuals were outside?
With the window closed, I just heard a very loud voice, and it kind of surprised me because I thought, well, who would be out there walking their dog in the rain, in the pouring rain out in the courtyard? Because that's normally where people walk their dogs.
Okay. And then what happened then, ma'am?
So I heard it. I just sat on my bed and, I started to read, and I heard the loud voices again.
Okay. Now, you said voices plural, so you were hearing at this point more than one voice?
I can only say that I heard a very loud, dominant voice at that point.
Okay. The
But you
loud
said
voice that you heard that
voices.
was dominant, could you make out what was being said, if something was being said?
When I opened the window to listen,
Okay. All right, so let me backtrack a second. You heard the voices, then you heard more voices. You got up. Did you open the window at that time?
yes,
Okay, tell us about that. How did you open? Did you physically go to the window and open it, I'm assuming? Because Leo was the only other
yes.
living, okay,
Yeah, Leo wasn't on the windowsill at that time.
okay, all right.
I went over I heard the voices again, and I thought, oh my gosh, who would be out there? So I raised up the window, and to look, because I have the blinds about 1 foot high, I had to kneel down where the cat ledge was and open the window. So when I opened the window, I thought, I could hear now the voices.
Okay. So you stated you had blinds. How far down were the blinds? Were they fully covering the window? Were they only halfway, 3/4 of the way, a quarter of the way?
About a foot, 2 feet, I could see perfectly clear.
Okay. So when you said you crouched down, you had a direct view out into what?
I kneeled down, so my hands were actually even on the cat ledge, and I would look straight out into the courtyard.
Okay. Tell us, if you could, what you heard and what you
The
saw.
cat ledge.
Like I said, I thought it was unusual that someone was out there in the pouring rain. So I opened the window, and all I could really hear, I guess I expected to open the window and hear like a conversation going on, but it really wasn't like someone out there just talking. When I opened the window, I heard like very aggressive voice, sounded very angry, very agitated. And that kind of struck me. I don't know why I didn't hear the words. I think it was just a tone of voice that I, didn't understand. I knew there was something different than just a conversation going on. But then I also heard, after the loud voice is very aggressive, almost like yelling, then I would hear like a lighter, softer, higher pitched voice.
This is my word, and if it's not correct, please correct me. Did you feel that there was an exchange back and forth, or was it, when you say a dominant voice, aggressive, was the less dominant, or how did you describe the other voice?
Well, I heard more of the dominant voice. That kind of went on longer and, more aggressive. And then maybe at the end of hearing more of that voice, I would just hear a little bit of the other higher toned, softer voice, almost kind of, like talking back to that person.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get you to do.
Yes.
At that time, when you were hearing the voices, when you were looking out, could you see the voices, who they were coming from?
No, I couldn't, because I had right next to the window is my nightstand, and I had my nightlight on while I was reading. So there was a glare. I could only very clearly hear, not see, because of that glare of my nightlight on.
And let's backtrack a second. Could you tell definitely the voices were coming from outside? In other words, outside versus somebody inside your home?
Absolutely. It was right from where I am. It's like 20, 30 feet, and you can hear it very clearly.
Okay, so somebody or two individuals outside?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned you had did you describe it as a night light or some kind of light on? Did you turn it off?
Yes. When I was hearing that it wasn't a normal conversation and some very aggressive going on, I thought, let me shut the light off and see if I could see who it is.
Okay.
And when
Go ahead. When you turned the light off, was your view then a better view in terms of going or looking outside of the courtyard?
yes,
Okay. If you could tell the jury what you then observed at that time.
I just reached over and shut my light off. And then when I looked down, I could see now at that point, two people on the ground, one on top of each other.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming when you first heard the voices and you were laying on the bed and you then mentioned getting up, et cetera, did you have like a stopwatch or something to time yourself as to how long it took you from the first voices you heard to the very end where you're at right now in terms of actually being able to see outside? Were you able to estimate how long? Let me backtrack. I apologize. Did you have a stopwatch and were you timing yourself in terms of how long from when you first heard the voices to the point where you're at now?
I wasn't timing anything. I just
Okay.
know there
Why would she
was
have
a little
stopwatch?
period of time of not hearing the voices because I didn't open the window right away.
Well, that's what I was trying to make sure that the jurors understood. So there was a gap, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, all right. If you were to estimate how long it was from when you first heard the voices to the point where you're at now, where you're actually looking out and you turn off the lights, if you estimated, how long do you think it took between the first time hearing the voices and then what you're describing now?
I could only estimate a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes at the most.
I apologize. I had you go back and estimate the time. What then are you observing when you're now looking clearly out and the light is not obstructing your view outside? What do you observe? You mentioned something. Go ahead and tell us what you observed and what you saw.
Yes, now I look out with the light off and I could see right near the porches that there are two men on the ground.
Okay.
Men, because I know they're men now, but two people on the ground, one on top of each other.
All
And
right.
it kind of looked like they were
Okay,
shuffling.
you're doing something with your hands, and I'm doing something now with my hands. But if you could, it's important for you to describe what you're doing. You're doing something with your hands. If you could articulate, because the jurors are able to hear you or see you, I should say.
Yes.
But I want, if you could, make sure the record's clear in terms of describe what action you're describing between the two individuals.
Right. Looking down, there was one person on top of each other. They were vertical, and it's kind of like you could hear scuffling. They're moving back and forth. I didn't see arms swinging or anything like that, but just that they were on the ground and they were wrestling or shuffling.
You mentioned that you now know there was two men. At the time when you were observing, could you tell at that point whether they were men, women, kids? Could you tell the race? Could you tell the gender? Could you tell, et cetera, about them other than there were two people on the ground?
No, I couldn't tell that. I only knew from hearing the voice, at least it sounded like a male voice, the aggressive voice that was there earlier that I heard.
Okay. All right. Tell us what then you observed and what you heard.
When I saw the two men on the ground, or people on the
Yes.
ground and shuffling, I thought, oh my gosh, something horrible is happening. So I had my cell phone right on the side where the light was. So
Horrible
I
is
just
happening.
grabbed the cell phone and, brought it to me and started pressing 911.
And in the process of calling 911, was there additional sounds that caught your attention?
Yes, as I was pressing 911 is when I heard very clearly that I say the two yells for help.
In terms of the two individuals, the voices that you've described, one a more dominant or aggressive and the other one, what word did you use to describe the other one?
Higher pitched.
Okay. The yells for help that you heard at that time, could you identify whether it was the dominant, louder voice or the higher pitched one?
Well, in my opinion, I truly believe, especially the second yell for help, that was like a yelp. It was excruciating. I really felt it was the boy's voice.
And in terms of distinguishing, you said, I apologize. The last sentence you said, the voice you heard yelling for help was whose voice?
Let me object, Your Honor, at this point then to improper predicate foundation for such an opinion.
Overall.
If you could repeat your last answer, I want to make sure all the jurors heard it. You said,
What is
in terms of
drawing
the
a
voice, the last
conclusion?
yell for help or yell, you said it was.
How do you
who did
know?
believe in terms of between the two individuals?
George Zimmerman
The
has a
boy, the
pretty,
younger person. It was like a boy's voice.
Okay. And when you say a younger person, is
doesn't
that
have a
based
very
on just
manly voice.
the voices that one was louder, more dominant, aggressive, and the other one sounded like a younger individual?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me backtrack a second. You've had experience, you mentioned in the last two jobs you had, you've dealt with children before, have you not?
Yes, I have.
And you've dealt with adults before too, have you not?
Yes, I have.
Okay, you were telling us that you heard some kind of yelp was that before the shot, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. And then you heard a shot.
Well, I call
Well,
it.
tell us what you heard. I apologize. You tell us what you heard.
Sorry. After hearing the yelps for help, I still was staring down out the window, and I just know it was still one person on top of each other. Then I heard from my window, pop, 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 and I don't know what a gun really sounds like, but it was like 3 popping noises.
So you felt from your observations or hearing, you felt it was actually 3 pops, I guess you heard.
Yes, from my window.
Okay. And then what happened?
Like I said, it was still dark. I heard the popping noises. I was shaking, and just a little while later, one person got up And that person got up and started walking right towards my window where I could see that person really clear now.
All right, now, the person, when you say started walking towards your window, were they headed towards your window you're talking about, literally? I know were you upstairs? Let's make sure the record's clear. You were upstairs, is that correct? Your
Yes.
vantage point. And so they were headed towards your building, the side?
That would be correct. They were coming closer to where my area is, where I live, so I could see them clearer.
Okay, all right. What, if you could, the observations of the person, describe what that person was doing as best you can in terms of any actions that, was the person just walking or were they standing? How were they acting?
They just were walking closer to where I was observing from. And they came, you could see them pretty clearly now because there actually was a light on the porch that was on that left side where I was observing. And the person just walked normally and then came over to where that porch was and just put his hand to his forehead, kind of like that.
And you're like, almost like well, I can't put words in your mouth. You tell us, you put your hand up to your, like, describe it. You could, again, just demonstrate to the jury. The person had their hand up to the forehead or to the side of their head?
Well, I was looking from above. So the person just, I could see the right side very clearly. So he just kind of, almost like a salute, just kind of had his hand there and bent his knees a little bit.
Okay. What then did you observe or hear?
Just shortly after that, I believe the neighbor from that house right there where I was watching from came out of his front door and I watched him go down the sidewalk to Mr. Zimmerman.
Okay. The person you now know is Mr. Zimmerman. Is that the person you described as walking and putting his hand to the head?
Yes.
Okay.
Put his hand
You
down.
mentioned the person you described now as Mr. Zimmerman, and
Probably,
I gather you know the other person that was shot, Trayvon Martin. Did you know him before at all?
No,
Did you know Mr. Zimmerman at all before that night?
no.
Okay. And you ended up calling, actually having contact or communicating with an operator at 911, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I want to show you some photographs if I could, ma'am. And hopefully you'll be able to see it up there from your vantage point. Please let me know if you can. Thank you, Your Honor. Do you see that exhibit right there in front of you?
warning,
Yes.
just in
Okay.
case. I don't
And
know.
do you live, I'm going to kind of point,
I get nervous every time they try
well,
to
I
show
don't know if I'll do a good
pictures.
job of this, but hold on. Kind of blow it up. Are you in this area right here? Are you in, am I the arrow? Is this where the apartments where you were at, or the townhouse where you were at back in February of 2012?
If that's where the courtyard is.
Yeah, assuming this is the courtyard T here. Is
Oh,
this-
okay. Now I see. Yes.
Your vantage point would have been from where the arrow is
Yes.
towards this area right here?
No, whatever I said, I said.
During that interview, while it may have been short, he gave you an opportunity to explain what you'd seen, correct?
Yes. And he recorded it.
He recorded it. Mhm. Did you seek him out, or did he find you?
After it happened and I talked to a friend on the phone, I was so nervous and shaken. I came out of my house, of the front door, and I saw a neighbor. And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, no, I saw it. She said, "Let me bring you over to the police."
Was that whole thing I just said muted? I don't know. Anyway, we just jumped into her cross. I don't know if her direct was done or not. This is just how it was. Either way, I don't feel like we missed much. If we did, sorry about you. I'm not too worried about it.
So she took me in back and I went right up to a lady police officer. And I said, "I need to tell you, what I saw and what happened."
Do you know who that officer was?
I believe her name was Serena.
You think that was
Officer
her
Serena. It was a lady.
woman? You think that was her first name?
I think so.
It was a police officer that you believe had the first name of Serena?
It was a female officer, yes.
It's not ringing a bell. That's why I'm wondering if you have any more information on that. It's not Sereno, though.
No, it wasn't a man.
So you then said, yes, you would like to be a witness?
Yes, I told her that I saw it and I was crying, and she said, okay, I'm going to send an officer into your house and he could come talk to you. And I said, yes.
And did you meet with an officer that evening?
Within minutes of her telling me that, I came back into my house and a police officer knocked my back glass window. It wasn't Officer Sereno, it was someone else. And he came in and he said, okay, go ahead and write down on this form what you saw and then give it back to me. And he left out my back window.
So you filled out a written statement and turned it in, basically?
Yeah, I went out the back and said, here it is. And then they said, there'll be another officer, Officer Sereno, coming to interview you a little later.
And that happened?
Yes,
Investigator Sereno met with you and took a taped statement
yes,
at your home?
yes,
And then you believed that he hadn't gotten enough detail from you?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, didn't you complain that he didn't even go upstairs to look out the window?
I didn't complain.
Did you make that comment?
I made the comment that I offered Officer Sereno if he wanted to go upstairs and view where I had witnessed. And he said, no, that's okay.
This was several days later?
Excuse me?
Several days later?
Yes,
So by then, he'd already collected other evidence and had interviewed other witnesses.
Objection is the speculation on the part of the witness.
He didn't say anything to you about the stage of the investigation when he went back to interview you further.
Objection. Now it's the hearsay what somebody else said.
Sustained.
In any event, you made the comment that you offered to let him go upstairs and look out your window, and he didn't do that, correct?
he chose not to, yes.
Sure. And you considered that to be something that he should have done?
I don't know, I'm not an investigator. I don't know what they normally do. I couldn't speak for him.
Well, would you defer to his judgment on that?
Say that again, please.
Would you defer to his judgment on that?
I would just think maybe he would want to see, that's all.
Of course, but would you defer to his judgment?
I mean,
can't
I
say.
would guess so, yes.
You said that you
He's the detective.
didn't want to be a witness to the 911 operator, and then you went downstairs and told a police officer that, yes, in fact, you did, correct?
Correct.
Objection asked and answered.
This is a lead into another question. Okay, go ahead.
That's true, isn't it?
That I went down, I was in front and the neighbor brought me over to a police officer, yes.
Right, and you told the police officer that you had seen some things and that you would be willing to give a statement.
I just said that I saw it and then she said she would send a police officer to my door.
And that happened,
Yes,
and you filled out a written statement.
Objection asked and answered.
This is all predicate stuff, Judge.
All right, let's get to the point.
Sure. So you filled out the written statement,
yes.
correct? And then some days later, Officer Sereno came out and interviewed you in more detail.
No, he came that night, 2 hours later.
2 hours later, I'm sorry. And then you said to someone that you didn't think he had, because he hadn't gone upstairs to look out the window, that he hadn't gotten enough, all of your information, enough information from you that you, all of the information that you basically had.
Judge, I'm going to object. I think that's been asked and answered twice.
Overruled.
I wouldn't say that.
Didn't you, though,
He looks like
Go
he's
on
leaning
national
back and read the
television?
paper.
to tell what you think you saw?
I was disguised and not shown on television and they had a distorted voice and no one knew who I was.
But it was you,
Well, they know
wasn't it?
now.
Yes,
So you did go on national television to tell, what was it, Anderson Cooper?
only with the agreement that I would not be seen and heard or recognized.
And they
And named.
respected that.
Yes,
But you did go on national television to tell what you believe you saw and heard.
yes,
And largely because you didn't think the Sanford Police Department spent enough time with you to get your information.
no,
You went on national television twice, though, didn't you?
no,
It was just the one time
yes,
that you were interviewed by Ashley Banfield, is that correct?
yes,
And that was videotaped and recorded and then repeated several times on national television.
I don't know, it was several times, just once is what I knew.
Did you see it?
Yes,
So you were there and then you saw it.
yes,
All these witnesses got their 15 minutes.
And the whole reason for this was that you thought it was Trayvon Martin
Spectacle.
that was the person that was crying so desperately for someone to help him.
That wasn't the only reason. I just wanted to say what I saw and what I heard, and people can make their own judgments.
But
Using their
you
common
said
sense.
that.
Objection, argumentative.
I don't know that argumentative is the right objection, so overrule.
It wasn't argumentative. She said that. She said she thought it was Trayvon. So you're not leaving it up to everybody else to use their judgment.
Thank you. Right?
You mentioned at the very beginning that it was pouring rain, and so you shut your window down. At the time you opened your window, it wasn't like pouring rain, or was it?
Objection, Your Honor, meeting.
Okay, let me rephrase the question.
Sustain.
You originally mentioned that at the beginning it was pouring rain that night.
Yes.
At the time that you observed what you observed and heard what you said, was it pouring down rain, or what was the conditions?
No, I don't think it was pouring down rain. It didn't, discard my
But you
view or anything
said
else.
it was pouring down rain.
Thank you, Miss.
You said, I don't know why anybody would be out
Sir,
there
that you be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
walking their
Thank you very
dog
much, Randy. You are
Thank
excused.
you.
in pouring rain.
Does anybody need a break?
Those
Yes.
were your
Okay.
words.
We'll take a 15-minute recess. If you'll please put your notepads face down on the chairs and follow Deputy Jarvis out of the courtroom.
Those were your words. I believe this is another neighbor.
You may proceed.
State your name for the record, please.
Jeannie Manalo,
And could you spell your first name and last name?
Jeannenmanalo.
You married, ma'am.
Yes,
What is your husband's name?
Jonathan Manalo,
How long have you been married?
7 years.
Usually men have more of a problem with that. Do you have any
Inappropriate,
kids?
I have one daughter.
How old is she?
She just turned 6.
Are you
irrelevant.
working outside the home at this time?
I'm sorry.
Are you
Irrelevant.
working outside the home at this time?
No.
Are you going to school?
Yes.
And are you going
Irrelevant,
to college here in Seminole County?
Yes.
irrelevant.
What are you studying to be?
Phlebotomy.
Did you previously work outside
She
the home?
gonna
Yes.
take people's blood.
And what did you do?
I work in a restaurant.
And how long did you do that for?
I believe 4 to 5 years.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you your current address, but do you live in Seminole County, Florida? at this
Yes,
time?
I do.
Irrelevant then.
And how long approximately have you lived in Seminole County total time you've lived here? Did you grow up here? Or how long have you lived here?
I believe 25 years.
Okay. Want to draw your attention back to February of 2012. Were you living at 2861 Retreat View Circle?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, back in February of 2012, how long had you lived in that residence?
We moved in 2007.
So that would have been 4 to 5
4
years?
to 5 years.
Okay. And I'd like to focus, if we could, on Sunday evening, February 26th of 2012, at around 7:10, 7:15, 7:05, 7:10, 7:15 p.m. Were you home that evening?
Yes.
Okay. Who else was home with you?
My husband and my daughter.
And what were you all doing that evening?
We were downstairs in the living room.
And obviously, I'm going to ask you about something that happened outside the residence. At that time, when something happened outside, what were you and your husband and your daughter doing at that time?
We were in the living room watching TV, and my husband was fixing the coffee table that we just bought that day,
He was actually building it?
building it in the living room. Yes.
Putting it
In terms of
together.
the townhouse or townhome, is it a two-level?
Yes.
And are the bedrooms upstairs?
Yes.
Does your
Same thing.
living room area where you were face the backyard of what's been referred to as a courtyard or a walkway? If you were to look out your backyard, do you have a sliding glass door in the back?
Yes.
Okay. And if you were to look out, is there what's been referred to either a dog walk, or a courtyard of some kind?
Yes.
Okay. At that time, was it already dark outside?
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the weather conditions, how would you describe them that night?
A little rainy.
Now, at around 7:05, 7:10, 7:15, did you hear some noise outside?
Yes.
Okay. And if you could, describe to the jury from your perspective, the noise you heard, what you describe it as best you can.
I heard a howling sound.
And you're actually using the word howling like a dog howling?
Yes.
Okay. When you heard that, what did you do?
I looked out the sliding door.
Okay. When you first looked out, were you able to see something distinctly?
No,
Okay. And why was that?
it was too dark.
When you looked out the first time, did your husband say something to you like regarding whether you should be looking out the window or not, or sliding door?
No.
Okay. Now, at some point, did you hear more noises?
Yes.
Okay. If you could describe to the jury in terms of the noises you heard a second time, and let me back there in a second, I apologize. You heard a howling sound. You looked out, you didn't see anything. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then you heard some additional noises.
Yes.
Okay. Were you timing in terms of how long the difference is, or?
No.
Okay. If you can estimate, was that within minutes, seconds, hours that you heard the first noise, and then you heard the howling sound, and you heard some additional noises?
After I heard the howling sound, I sort of forgot about it. And then I heard a closer sound that sounded like a help sound.
Okay, all right. And
After I heard the howling sound, I forgot about it. And then I heard the yelling of help.
so let's make sure all the jurors heard that. You first heard the howling, and then you forgot about it, and then you heard another voice like sounded like
A help.
a help. Okay. And I apologize. Sometimes that microphone, either you're too close or too far. Sometimes it's hard for people to hear. Did you look out the sliding door or the window at that time?
Yes.
And did you observe something going on outside?
Yes.
Okay, all right. If, as best you can, describe to the jury, and I know, let me backtrack a second. I know at some point, how many times total did you look out? More than once? I'm assuming out the,
Yes, more than once.
there have been 2 or 3 times. You know, you have a
Okay,
vivid
yeah,
recollection
yeah.
how many times you looked out.
I know I looked out when I heard the howling sound. I looked out when I heard the help sound. I looked out when I saw people on the ground,
Okay, all right.
2 people on the ground.
Okay, all right. At some point, when you heard the howling sound, you looked out, you didn't see anything. Then you heard voices again. You heard help.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look
Yes.
out at that time?
Yes.
Okay. At that time, did you see somebody out there? What did you see?
After I heard the help,
Yeah.
I didn't see anything. I sat down and I heard, I don't know, it caught my attention.
Okay.
And when
Tell us if you can, when you say it caught your attention, what do you mean by that?
I guess struggling, I don't know, noises.
Okay.
I looked out. That's when I saw them on the
Just like,
ground.
stop
and I saw
asking
my
me the same
neighbor.
fucking question. I told
Let
you.
me backtrack a second, so make sure the sequence, the jury understands sequence. You heard the howling sound, didn't see anything. You looked out or you heard some other sound. You looked out, you didn't really see anything, but you heard a struggle outside. If you can elaborate on that, when you say struggle, what do you mean by that?
Like noise,
Okay.
noising, like rumbling.
Okay.
Rumbling.
Like
Like
a
thunder?
rumbling or grumbling or, I don't know.
Like strugglings.
Okay, like a struggle? Okay. And then you didn't see anything distinct, and then what, you looked out, did you go back and sit down, or what did you do?
My finger hurt.
After the howling, I looked. I didn't see anything. I heard help.
Okay.
I didn't see anything. I looked out again, and I saw them there, and I saw my neighbor.
All right, so this is the third time in terms of looking out, or whatever time it is, you're looking out, you see him. Tell us what you saw out there at that time.
It was dark, so I know I saw 2 people on the grass, one laying down, one on top, and I saw my neighbor came out from his sliding door. I remember him saying, "Are you guys okay? Do you want me to call 911?"
And when you say you saw a neighbor that came out from the sliding door, obviously a neighbor means somewhere near where you live. Was it your next door neighbor in the same building you are, across or to the side, or where was that?
Across.
Okay. And did you know that neighbor's name at the time?
No.
Do you know that neighbor's name now?
No.
Okay. And when you say across, was it directly across from where you are, or was it an angle across?
It was an angle.
You mentioned the neighbor came out, said something. What happened then?
And that's when my husband told me to sit down, mind my own business.
Okay. And did you do that, or did you stay out?
I just sat down.
Okay, all right. Then what happened?
Then
Sit
I
down
was
and mind
shocked.
your business, woman.
Now, in terms of when you observed somebody on the ground, could you tell whether it was one person or 2 people at the ground?
Mind your
Okay.
business.
And if you can, describe to the jury what you observed.
Woman.
When you say on the ground, what were the 2 individuals on the ground doing? And how were they positioned to the best of your recollection?
One is on top of the other. The one on top just moving his hand, arms.
Okay. You're describing something with the hands, or you're demonstrating to the jury, I should say, moving something with his hands. Can you tell exactly what the person was doing on top with his hands?
Like he's hitting him.
Okay, like you said, okay, and then what?
Then that's what I saw.
Okay. Could you tell it was somebody, the other person, could you tell whether the person was below, on the bottom of that person that was hitting, or on top, or on the side, or where?
I know the top is just hitting down,
Okay. Could you see the person at the bottom clearly in terms of what position that person was in?
just laying down.
Laying down? Okay. And the person on top, was the person on top lying down, standing? I know you're saying on the ground. How was that person positioned, the person on top?
I don't know, it was dark.
Okay. In terms of I gather because it was dark, were you able to see their faces?
No.
Were you able to see any kind of clothing that they were wearing?
No, but I can tell,
Okay. In terms of their size, were you able to tell whether one person was bigger than the other?
yes.
Okay. In terms of who was bigger than the other from your vantage point, the person on top or the person on the bottom?
After seeing the news,
Okay.
I can compare and I can
Let
tell
me-
you,
Let me object, Your Honor.
Yeah. After seeing the news,
If she's going to
I need
commit
a legal objection that is.
improper foundation for her testimony.
overruled.
Council needs to approach, please.
After seeing the news, I'm gonna say whoever is gonna help your case. I believe she said that after seeing the news.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Spinello, you were describing the two individuals in terms of, and I was asking you, in terms of the difference between the two individuals, could you tell that one was different than the other in terms of their appearance, their height, weight, or their size?
when I saw them there, I didn't care about the size. All I know, I saw a shadow.
When I saw them there,
I didn't care about the size. I don't know if it's, I don't care if it's a female. All I know is two of them there. But to be specific right now, after seeing the news, yes, the top is bigger than the bottom.
Is that based on, you saw Mr. Zimmerman on the news?
Yes,
And you saw the physique or a person that got killed, Trayvon Martin, in terms of his size?
yes.
And is your opinion then that the person on top was Mr. Zimmerman because he's bigger?
Object, Your Honor. Leading.
Just say it's a leading.
What is your opinion as to who the person on top was? Was it the bigger person or the slighter person?
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
What is your opinion as to who was on top?
I believe it was Zimmerman comparing the size of their body.
Wasn't George wearing
And you mentioned that
an orange jacket?
at that time when they were on ground, you mentioned
Reflectors on
hitting,
it.
did you actually see the hands hitting the other person, or did you see movement with the hands when they were struggling?
I see movement.
Okay. In terms of you heard the help or something to that effect, is that correct?
Yes,
Do you remember how many times you heard help?
more than once.
Okay. And from your vantage point, can you tell who was screaming or asking for help? Can you tell which one of the two individuals?
No idea.
You also mentioned, I believe, that the first sounds you heard, and then you heard additional sounds, and the howling sound first. Did the sound to you, from the howling to the final sounds, did they appear to be getting closer to where you?
Lost it. I goofed. I goofed. I goofed. Goofed. I goofed. I goofed. I goofed. I know. I know. Try to forget.
Hey, could you tell her what direction, whether it was to the north, east, west? Could you tell her just a
My
little
bad.
further away?
Let's say I'm looking out my sliding door right now. When I look to peek, the howling sound is that way,
Okay, to the right somewhere?
to the right
Okay,
somewhere.
all right. Can you tell how far away it was at all?
No.
Okay. And you mentioned that the cries for help or whatever help was more than once. Did you count how many times exactly?
I didn't count.
You mentioned your husband told you something to get away from the window. You did. Is that correct?
Yes.
At some point, did you hear some kind of shot?
I heard the shot before I looked out.
Okay. All right. Do you remember which time in terms of from a sequence standpoint?
No.
Okay. When you heard a shot, were you still inside your residence?
Yes.
Did you ever go outside at all?
No.
Did your husband go outside?
Yes.
When he heard the shot, did he go outside before you heard the shot or after you heard the shot?
He went outside. Okay. When I heard the shot, I looked out the sliding door, told my husband, someone got shot, and he went out.
Okay. So let's make sure the jury heard that in terms of understanding exactly what you said. You heard a shot, you looked outside at that time?
I heard the shot, I looked out, told my husband, and he went out.
Okay. When you heard the shot and you looked out, what did you see out there?
Fence is kind of confused the hell out
The
of
one
her.
laying down,
Okay.
that's all I remember.
Okay. That's all you remember? Did your husband then go outside?
Yes.
And do you recall, did he go outside through the sliding door or did he, in the back, or did he go out the front, or do you know?
We have 3 doors to enter. We have the front sliding door and the door to go to the garage. He went out the garage door.
And at some point, did the police arrive out there?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever go outside that night and talk to the police?
No.
Did your husband at some point stay outside?
He stayed outside.
That night, after the police arrived, did your husband at some point come inside the house and get something?
Yes.
Okay. And you recall what that was?
A plastic bag.
And how do you know it was a plastic bag?
Because when my husband went back, he asked for a plastic bag. The paramedic was asking for a plastic bag.
And do you recall what type of plastic bag it was?
It's a Walmart bag.
Is that a white Walmart bag?
We had a green one,
Okay.
gray Walmart bag.
It's a Walmart bag, whatever color?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you know it was a Walmart bag?
Because that's where I go.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna show you some photographs.
Because I go to
Hopefully you'll be able to see
Walmart.
the screen right here. Let me show you State's Exhibit number, thank you, Your Honor. State's Exhibit number 1, and you recognize that as a retreat at Twin Lakes. It's a Google type view. I'm gonna focus on a part of it. Hopefully I don't mess up in doing this. Would your residence have been right here in the corner right here?
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of your backyard, it would be facing out this. Is this the courtyard we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And when you observed what was going on outside at the point where they're on the ground, I'm going to kind of move this arrow around. You tell me where and what area. I'm going to move it around. Do you recall what area it was in relation to your backyard? And I've got some photographs to show you, but I just wanted to get the perspective. Was it this area right here?
On the other side of the sidewalk?
On this, is this the sidewalk on the other
Yes.
side? So on this side?
Yes.
Okay. And you recall where on this side approximately it was?
The second house.
Right here?
Right there.
Is it, am I pointing it to the area right here?
Yes.
Okay. The person that you described coming outside your back and saying something to the 2 individuals, which house? Is it this one in the corner, this one down? Do you recall?
I believe the second house.
Right here, this house right here, am I pointing to that area?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Huh? Oh, double click. Ma'am, I apologize for the record. That was State's Exhibit number 1. State's Exhibit number 3, can you see your house at all? Or where you used to live, can you see it at all in that photograph?
Can I see my house?
Yeah, would your house be over here in the dark over there is what I'm trying to get. You can't see your house from there.
No, they don't live
Okay.
there anymore.
State's Exhibit number 5, can you see your residence now?
Yes.
Okay, and am I pointing to your residence right here?
Yes.
Okay. That night, while this was going on, do you recall whether your porch light was on as it is in this photograph, State's Exhibit number 5?
No, it was not on.
State's number 6, would the back of your residence be in this right here? And would you have been facing this way out towards over here where this occurred?
Our residence house, the back looks the same.
Okay.
So,
All right, but what I'm saying is you're looking out into this walkway?
yes.
Okay. State Exhibit number 10, would this, to the right of that photograph, would this be your residence here where you lived back
Yes.
then?
Yes.
Okay. And State's Exhibit number 11, would your residence have been this right here in the corner? That I'm
Yes.
circling right here?
Yes.
And is this approximately the area, or where was the area where you observed the 2 individuals you mentioned, Mr. Zimmerman and the other individual? Where were they in relation to, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, man. I need some assistance. Huh? Sorry. Thank you. I apologize. Your residence right here, where around the two individuals, Mr. Zimmerman and person you now know is Trayvon Martin, where were they in relation to where your house was?
When I,
Is this the area where covered right here, or tell me where? I can't.
yeah, when I looked out, it was my left.
I apologize, Your Honor. Thank you. Okay, I will move it. Tell me where.
Exactly like that. They were there.
Okay, where this yellow right here is?
Yes.
Okay.
So disrespectful. Where this yellow is right here?
State exhibit number 37, that's a daytime photograph. Would your residence be over here to the corner right here that I
Yes.
left the cursor or pointer at?
Yes.
Okay. And the area you described where this was going on, was it on this side of the sidewalk that I'm pointing to right here?
Second house. Second house.
Second
yes.
house? Okay. State exhibit 38, does that just show the courtyard and your residence right here in the corner?
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying second house about right here where I'm pointing to?
Yes.
Okay. State exhibit 42, is that a close-up of the back of your residence?
Yes.
Okay. And obviously, this is daytime, right?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm through with the photographs. Of course. Permission, may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Manalo, back in February of 2012, were you living at, let's show you State Exhibit number 139? Would your residence have been 2861?
Yes.
Okay. So this would have been your residence right here?
Yes.
Okay, and your vantage point from looking out would have been through this?
This sliding door. Yes.
Does that have no, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
I have any further questions?
Okay, thank you, Cross.
I have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes,
Thank
you.
you.
Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
It's just gonna be a couple minutes, okay? It's okay, ma'am. Thank you. So as you testified, you heard some noise, correct? It was first, I think you said it was a howling noise.
Yes.
And as you're sort of positioning yourself, let's use that picture right there. See where the little bench is?
Yes.
You're actually inside the apartment at that point, right?
Yes.
You hear the howling, and
Their condo.
position myself, as though I was inside your house. You heard the howling off to your right, correct?
Correct.
That was the first noise that caught your attention.
Yes.
And then at some point, you will go through it a bit more slowly, but at some point when you actually looked out to see two people, they were off to your left a little bit, correct? From here, sort of across the pathway and it touched to your left, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the first howling was to the right, and then the noise was to the left.
It got
Correct.
closer.
Closer and to the left. It was further away a little bit as it was when you first heard it, correct?
When I heard the howling, I looked out, didn't see anything. I
Right.
heard the help sound, I looked out, I didn't see anything, but I know it's closer.
And to a mind approach your own. So just to sort of orient all of us, including the jury, I'm going to put it sort of behind you, if you don't mind turning towards me just a touch. This is you. This is in your house somewhere in here, correct? You
Yes.
heard noise, and I think you said it was somewhere in this area?
Yes.
Does that sound right? You didn't see anything, you just heard it
Yes.
through the doors that were closed.
Yes.
You can hear what you identified as howling.
Yes.
And then the people, when you did look out, I know I'm passing over a couple of your views, and I'll get back to that. But when you finally looked out to see people, you saw them in right about this area?
Yes.
And that was when you saw two people,
Yes.
one on top of the other.
Yes.
And you couldn't see anything, or couldn't describe those people back then because it was too dark? I
Yes.
think you said there was no lighting going on
It was-
around?
Yes.
Okay. I think you said a moment ago that actually you couldn't see or describe them at all that night, right?
It was dark.
Right, you couldn't see anything. Matter of fact, I think in
It
your
was
representation, you said you didn't even know if it was
Everybody
a
keeps
woman or a
saying
man.
it's dark.
Yes. At that time, yes.
Right, at the time that you're actually, we'll get to that. When you heard the howling, certainly you didn't know what it was, correct? Okay. You sort of looked out glass door, didn't see anything, just went back to whatever it was you were doing?
Yes.
Was that watching TV, or do you recall?
Yes, we were watching TV. My husband is rebuilding the coffee table.
Okay. And TV was on then, obviously, and listening to it, the noise of the TV?
Yes,
And it was raining outside?
light rain.
Okay. Then you
Drizzling.
said that you heard something a second time that you sort of described as a help, correct?
Mhm.
Again, could you, I'm going to misuse a word here, could you echolocate where that was coming from? Could you tell where that noise was coming from in relation to what we talked about a moment ago?
I don't remember now.
Okay. But it was certainly outside,
Yes,
in the same general direction,
it was closer.
a little bit closer. So let me ask this, and again, I'm to try and orient the jury. The initial noise, again, was in this area. When you say closer, could it have been in this area?
When I heard the howling sound, maybe it's somewhere around there.
Okay, a
When I heard the help sound, it got closer.
little bit closer.
Mhm.
Again, you didn't see anything. When you say closer, does it seem closer to you because it was louder?
Yes,
Okay. So
I'll be right back.
you could tell that it seemed to be moving, the noise source seemed to be.
Gosh dang it, I keep hitting the wrong button. Keep hitting the wrong button.
Now, at some point, you've given some statements in this case, right? Talked to officers about what you saw and heard.
yes,
We took your deposition as well, remember that?
yes,
Talked to you about what you saw and heard.
I'll be right back.
Okay. You said the next thing that caught your attention was the shot, right?
yes,
Okay, that was the very next thing. The help went back to TV, then you heard the shot. Is that accurate?
yes.
Okay, and it was when you heard the shot that you then went out the third time, correct?
I didn't go out.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I said out. And what I meant was you just walked to the door the
Yes.
third time.
I looked out at the sliding door. I don't know. I don't really remember how many times I looked out. When you say third time, all I know is I looked out when I heard a howling sound. I looked out when I heard a help sound. I looked out when I saw them on the ground and my neighbor. And I looked out when there was a shot.
Okay.
That's what I remember.
Do you remember ever saying in your deposition or statement you gave to the police that you had seen a neighbor out there any of the times that you talked?
Yes,
Do you remember
that's,
telling that to the police?
I got interviewed with a lot of people. And if they didn't ask me a question about that, I don't know if I told them.
Okay. Would you then defer to the statement that you gave the police as opposed to your testimony here today as that being more accurate? Let me say it in a way that makes at least a little bit of sense. If there's a difference in your memory here today, would you defer to the statement you gave closer in time to the event?
I still don't understand.
All right, I'm gonna try it one last time. What you told the police back right after it happened, was that as accurate as it could be?
Yes,
Did you give them the information very close in time to when you observed it?
yes.
Okay, and were you trying to tell them everything that you could tell them about this event?
I try to tell them everything I know on the question they're asking me.
Okay. If your statement to law enforcement, and we'll talk about the one on March 20th, 2012. Remember giving a statement to a Dale Crosby with Florida Department of Law Enforcement, March of 2012?
I remember giving a statement to a lot of people.
Okay, let me walk you through it slowly then, so we don't get, I know that there were a number of them. So may I have a moment, you want?
Why do they get so testy? Get so irritated. They're just doing their job, asking you questions. Asking you questions.
I have, Your Honor, I have the audio tape. I have a transcript that is not official. I'd like to approach the witness with the unofficial transcript rather than take the time for the audio. See if that would help. With consideration of the state, of course. Just
Who is breathing heavy?
You gave me two.
sorry.
Testy ass witnesses.
I presume I'm waiting if you want to object.
So sorry to interrupt your day. Jesus. So sorry to put a damper in your plans.
I guess my opinion is, I understand the purpose of this witness being provided, this is to impeach, is it no impeachment, I don't know.
I don't know, I just think he's having her review it at this time.
Yeah, take a moment if you would to review that. and tell
Mr.
me
Leading,
if you
sit
know what that
down.
document is.
She don't know.
I remember.
Okay, is that a transcript of the statement that you gave on March 20th, 2012 at 3:26 to Agent Dale Crosby of Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
I believe so. A lot of people interviewed me. I don't know what time. I believe so. This is it. A lot of people interviewed me. I don't know exactly who it is.
Great, thank you. If you would take a moment to review it, I want you to acknowledge that those are your words transcribed onto that document.
Okay.
Okay. Do you describe the two individuals anywhere at all?
Okay.
Compare their size or anything in that statement?
What page is it on?
No, I'm wondering whether or not it's there
No,
at
he's
all.
asking, do you see it or did you say it?
This isn't proper impeachment.
No, it's
You
not.
didn't ask for that on redirect.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you see anywhere
Where
in
in
that
that
statement where you would have
statement?
advised officers
In
of Florida
that-
Department of Law Enforcement that you were able to describe the two individuals that you saw at all?
I said it here on the second page.
Go ahead.
I said, when I heard a shot, I looked out and that's when I saw a shadow, two people, two men on the grass,
Right. You said you saw shadows, correct?
shadows.
You did not describe one compared to the other, did you?
No.
And
The question was two people. I said, yes, two people. And he didn't ask me to describe it, so how can I describe it?
okay. And
I mean, you would think you
do you
would add as much
recall
detail.
having a conversation with Mr. Delarianda before today, where he took a statement from you?
Forward.
Yes,
Okay. Do you recall whether or not you ever described the two individuals then?
I don't remember.
Okay.
The answer is probably no. I'm just gonna go out on a limb
So,
here and say it's probably no.
You look out two, maybe three times. Is that correct? You don't remember exactly how
More
many?
than one time, yes.
Okay. And then at some point after the gunshot, or after a noise that you heard you believed to be a gunshot, we now know that was, correct?
Yes,
You looked out and that's when you saw these shadows. Is that
Yes.
accurate?
yes,
Did you ever go outside?
no,
Was it still dark?
yes.
And were they on the ground at that point?
It was exactly what the picture was.
Okay. After the gunshot. Correct.
After the gunshot, I saw one on the ground, on the grass. I don't remember the other one, where
Okay.
he was.
Well, I want to make sure. Was there a time that you looked out and saw one person on top of the other?
Yes,
Okay. And that is when you're saying you believe that you saw your neighbor out there as well.
yes,
The neighbor who you don't know, but that was the neighbor who was actually very close to what was going on, correct?
yes.
If I told you his name, would that help refresh your recollection as to who he may have been?
No,
You don't even know who it was? If I might approach the witness for just a moment. Again, so we get the orientation. This is where you are, this is where the event was. Was the person from this building, from this apartment? Is that the one you saw?
yes,
Okay, so from 1221?
yes.
And do you remember where about he was?
He opened his sliding door,
This
The
patio
slide-
area here?
the sliding door, yes,
He was right there,
right there.
facing you and facing the event that was going on?
He couldn't face me because our house is farther that
Gotcha.
way.
Was he seemingly looking at the event that was going on just outside of his apartment?
Yes,
Those two people, now this time that we're talking about, was that when you saw what you identified as shadows?
Yes,
Now, I think what you testified to earlier was, though you could not describe or compare the two back then, correct?
correct.
Since then, you've had an opportunity to look at some other evidence or information that helped you make a comparison, correct?
Yes,
And what that comparison was that you saw pictures of what we now know to be Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, correct?
yes.
Did you see George Zimmerman that night after the shooting?
Did I see him after that night?
Did you see him that night on scene, so to speak, still at the area once the police arrived?
I saw, yeah, my husband was talking to him.
Right, okay. So you were able to see sort of what he looked like?
Yes,
Okay. Describe his face.
exactly what in the picture. In the news.
In the news. Exactly his picture.
Smaller version of this is already in evidence, Your Honor, so I'd like to show this to the state and see if they object to
Do you know the number that it is? Do you know the number?
I'm sorry, yes, Your Honor, it is. Number 79. Thank you, Your Honor.
Number 79 isn't in evidence yet.
It is not. I don't want to show.
Oh, maybe it's in evidence, it just hasn't been shown yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Let me ask you to just turn with me and look. Is that what George Zimmerman looked like that night when you saw him talking to your husband?
I didn't see his face.
You never saw his face?
Not like with the blood on, it's just the side. I didn't see his face like that, just the side. Because they were walking on the side. Walk.
Another moment for my own. I'm going to show the. We might see some of the evidence photographs in a moment, Your Honor. I'd like to see. It will be 45. Is it easy for you to get 45 for me?
Don't look at the judge. She can't save you. They always get annoyed when the defense is asking questions.
She should have a number, no. My main objection, Your Honor, is to show her it's 45.
Yes, it makes you so.
45. I might just have a moment.
La-di-dee, la-di-da, la-di-dee, la-di-da.
How to accomplish some of this, okay?
Okay.
You had said that you did not have enough of an opportunity to describe the two people that you saw that night on the ground, correct?
Yes,
Okay. But at some later time that you saw some photographs which gave you an opportunity to then compare the two?
yes.
Tell me what photograph, and I want you to describe it, you saw of Trayvon Martin that you used for comparison.
One when he was 15.
Do you recall what the photograph was?
I believe it was the first shot of the picture that they showed in the news.
That would have been, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I believe it was bald looking.
And we're talking now about Trayvon Martin, correct?
I'm sorry.
Trayvon Martin, I asked you about Trayvon Martin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me to describe him.
No,
Oh.
we'll get to that in a minute, but here's what I want you to do. You've told us now that
Jesus
you've had an
Christ.
opportunity after the fact to look at some pictures that gave you an opportunity to make some comparison,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So now I would like to know what the picture of Trayvon Martin was that you used for comparison?
Oh, that's when he was on the hood, when I saw him.
Okay, so it was a picture of him with a hoodie on,
Yes,
and that was a face shot,
yes.
and you saw him to be what?
I saw him to be,
Well, looking at that picture, that was just a face shot,
That's
wasn't
just a
it?
face shot. How do you know
And it
how
was
big
just
he is in that?
Hoodie and the shoulders, correct? Maybe
yes,
some of his chest,
yes,
sort of looking at the camera?
yes,
Okay. That was the only photograph that you used for comparison purposes?
yes,
So you had no idea how tall Mr. Martin was,
What?
no,
or how heavy he was?
no,
But simply from the fact that he looked in that picture to be whatever he looked to you, you thought that he was small,
Wow.
smaller.
yes.
Okay. And what picture? This is already in evidence, Your Honor. I think it's the one we identified as. Excuse me. If I might. Let me have you take a look at this photograph. This is at 45. Just take a moment. Do you identify who that is?
Yes,
Was that cleaned up as he may have been? Was that the way George Zimmerman looked that night?
he was on the side when I saw him.
Okay. Talking about the size.
Well, he was wearing a jacket, yes,
That, matter of fact, that orange jacket right there, wasn't it?
I think so.
Okay. And that was the jacket that he had on when you
So
saw him talking
let
to your
me-
husband? Correct?
I know it's orange. I don't know if it's, yes,
Okay.
Even in
Um,
the dark,
Looking
you
at this
can't
picture,
tell the difference between an
did you see
orange
any other picture
jacket
of Trayvon Martin
and a
for
gray
comparison
hoodie.
purposes when you compared that picture
Which
to the person you
Of
saw here?
them were on top.
Do you see what I'm
All
saying?
you people that saw
I
this,
saw Trayvon Martin picture.
In
I
the
saw
hoodie?
in, yeah.
Okay.
you
And I saw
couldn't
his
tell
picture.
which one was
And in your
which.
mind, then, knowing that
Come
there was a
on
picture of
now.
Trayvon Martin in a hoodie, it was that image that you compared with this image to think that Trayvon Martin was smaller. Is that accurate?
That's how I compared it.
Right.
Maybe I am wrong. I don't know who's bigger now, but that's how I compared it.
That's okay. But it was based upon that
Well,
comparison.
clearly
It's sort of
he's
a
bigger
headshot and shoulders. I say headshot, I mean sort of taking a picture here. Whatever that, we're going to call it the
Maybe a poor
hoodie
choice of
shot,
words.
okay, for right now. Whatever that hoodie shot was, that was your comparison for
That's not a good
identifying the
choice
size of
words
Trayvon Martin
either.
as
Maybe
compared
not
to George
use the word
Zimmerman?
shot.
I also saw more than one picture of Martin.
Did you see the Hollister photograph where he had a red shirt with the Hollister on it?
I saw the one with him wearing a football.
Oh, okay.
I
And that was him when he was wearing a green football outfit?
think so.
If you had to guess, what do you think
Oh,
his
but-
age was during that football outfit photograph?
Probably 12.
I know he's 17.
He's 17 at the time of his passing. Do you know when that football photograph was taken?
No, I don't know.
So it is that football photograph, however, that you use for comparison purposes between who was the bigger person, that picture of Mr. Trayvon Martin in his football outfit, and a picture or an image similar to this one, number 45. That in your mind was the comparison?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you're wrong. And your comparison skills are
I
shit.
mentioned a moment ago another photograph that has been
Fuck off.
distributed concerning Mr. Martin. I mentioned a Hollister photograph. Remember seeing that one? Red shirt with the word Hollister on it?
No.
I might have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, you may.
This is the craziest. The crazy, the crazy, the crazy. Let's. Can we move on? Did these one? Don't start right there.
Prior to talking to him,
We're just gonna finish up this one. That was gonna be a very long video.
To any radio, television, or newspaper reports about the
Did I see the picture?
yeah, did you see those before or after?
After. After?
After what?
After. I saw it.
Not this photograph.
Yes.
Okay. This is one that you used. And that is Defense Exhibit S. And how about this photograph?
Yes,
Another one that you use for your comparison? Defense Exhibit T. And this photograph.
yes,
And this is used for comparison purposes.
yes.
That is Defense Exhibit V. V as in Victor, sorry. This photograph.
No,
You never saw this photograph. Well, check that. Cannot use a photograph like this for comparison purposes.
I didn't see that photograph.
This
No,
similar short
no,
crop line.
no.
For this only to purpose, those are the only.
Yes, you may.
Very limited. These photographs that were shown to you by Mr. Romero, now, did you see these prior to saying that there was a weight difference or build difference between Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Martin? Or was this after? When was this asked? When did you see these photographs in relation to making the statement that there was a size difference between Mr. Martin and Mr. Zimmerman?
When did I see the picture?
Yeah, did you see those before or after?
After. After?
After what?
After. I saw it in the news after the event.
Okay. Did you see those? Okay, after the event.
Yes,
And prior to making the statement that you made where you said there was a weight difference or a height difference between the two individuals?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions for the proper of sorts. I think we're ready for the jury then.
Okay, which, we ready to bring the jury in?
I believe we are.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring them in.
I'm confused. What toenail clippers? I don't know if I have any. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
Final jury present.
Please be seated. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And while you're settling in, I'll go ahead and ask you my questions. During the lunch hour, did any of you, and if your answer is yes to any one of my questions, please raise your hand. Did any of you during the lunch hour have any discussions amongst yourselves or with anybody else about this case? No hands are being raised. Did any of you read or listen to any radio, television, or newspaper reports about the case?
Sure did. Kick
No
me
hands
off.
are being raised. Did any of you use an electronic device to do any independent research about the case, people, places, things, or terminology? No
Yep,
hands are
I
being
had to
raised. And finally,
Google
did any of you read or
all
create
kinds
any
of words.
emails, text messages, Twitters, tweets, blogs, or social networking pages about the case? Thank you. No hands are being raised. Ms. Manella, I'll remind you, you're still under oath. And Mr. Romero, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, ma'am, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Before the lunch break, we were talking about what you used to come up with your opinion that there was a size differential between Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Martin, correct?
Yes,
And we talked about some photographs that you viewed. Is that correct?
yes.
Put them down now. Oh, careful.
I'm going to, if I might, Your Honor, since they've been previously identified, I was going to put them on the screen for her to identify. But that, no, I'm sorry, let me do
I
it
didn't
for
know
the
if you're
jury.
moving- Are you moving them into evidence? And is there an objection?
I would move the entirety of what's been previously identified in the proper evidence, Your Honor.
And that would be which letters?
Those were,
S, T, U, and V?
yes, Your Honor.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, S will come in as defense exhibit number 2. T will, oh no, I'm sorry, 12. T will come in as defense exhibit 13, U will be 14, and V as in Victor will be 15.
12.
You're going to put them up and want the lights down?
Yes, if you would, Your Honor.
Wasn't helpful.
Hold on. Thank you, sorry, Your Honor.
I hate when they whisper because I can't hear
Can you
it.
see that screen?
Yes,
Be nosy in there.
Is this one of the photographs that you looked at in coming up with your sort of description of a difference in size between the two?
Yes,
Do you identify that as both
She
a
feels real
regular
stupid.
and then photoshopped
I think
picture
she
of
does.
Trayvon Martin?
I don't know if she
Yes.
knows what she said was dumb. I would hope she
Would you
knows.
agree that that is, as we talked about earlier,
Would
simply
you
a shoulder and
agree?
head shot of Mr. Martin?
yes,
That what you said was dumb as shit.
Can you see this photograph? Yes, it is. It's slightly different, John. Let me just get the right one. Maybe some help. And I'll do this one next, Your Honor.
He can't figure it out, y'all.
Maybe recognize this
Help me
photograph.
yes,
Is this a photograph that you used to help you in your comparison between Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Martin?
yes,
Is it?
yes.
She said yes.
Give me a guesstimate of the age you think the person in that photograph is?
11, 12?
And how about this photograph? Recognize this photograph?
Yes,
And this was also one that you used in your comparison between Mr. Zimmerman on the night of February 26, 2012, and Mr. Martin, correct?
yes.
To guesstimate
I mean,
as to how
you're
old that
just-
person is.
16?
If I might approach the witness, Your Honor, just to make sure we have the proper. Yes.
You're just beating a dead horse. Seriously.
Let me show you what's been now entered into evidence as defense 14, and ask if you can identify that photograph as well.
Yes,
And is that also a photograph of Trayvon Martin?
yes,
And also one that you utilized in making this comparison between Trayvon Martin's relative size and George Zimmerman's relative size?
yes.
I would like to publish this to the jury.
Can we be done with this line of questioning? No, because they're gonna recross and then recross and then sidebar and then recross. Stupid 911 lady is coming back.
Your husband had taken a photograph of George Zimmerman's injuries that night, did he not?
Yes,
And you've seen that photograph, correct?
yes.
I believe that was licensed to ABC, correct?
License to ABC.
It was sold or licensed to
She
American
don't know
Broadcasting
that.
Company. That's how they got the picture.
I don't know.
Objection.
I'm not approach the witness.
Yes, ma'am.
This is in evidence as, with 76.
Objection outside the
I don't think
scope
you're
of
speaking
her knowledge or some shit. I don't know. Shit, I don't know. Why can't I just skip the 10 seconds? I can skip the 10 seconds on
You
my
had
phone.
testified earlier, I think, you understand that Mrs. Zimmerman's on trial for secondary murder, correct?
Yes,
And you had
I think
testified
so.
earlier that as far as
I'm
the
still-
size or the comparison of the two people, at first you testified that you can only see shadows, correct?
yes,
And then you testified that you, as to the size comparison, you could have been mistaken. Is that correct?
the only way I can find out for now, if I can see Martin's recent picture.
Yes, ma'am. Then, Your Honor, with that in mind, I'd like to have a moment. You may need to address this first at the bench, Your Honor. I don't want to show her something until that's been accomplished.
Counsel first.
This is marked and previously given to him just a couple minutes ago, but I'll show it to him again, Your Honor.
Just.
of the relative size of the two individuals was based upon the aged photographs that we've just reviewed,
Yes,
and that alone. And that, in effect, you were comparing Mr. Zimmerman, this person, right? This is the Mr. Zimmerman that you saw that night, correct?
yes,
And we reference 45, exhibit 45. You're comparing him to the football picture, correct?
yes,
And to the hoodie picture, correct?
yes,
And to the other football, the even younger football picture, correct?
yes,
You have not seen any current photographs of Mr. Trayvon as existed that night, have you?
that's correct.
Have you had a chance to review the video of the 7-Eleven that was now in evidence?
No,
Right, just a moment. Just one or two more. So in sum, you were in the house and heard various occurrences outside that caught your attention.
yes,
Howling, there was a noise. You went outside and saw another neighbor whose name you don't know across the way looking at the two individuals on the ground.
yes,
You heard a shot, correct?
yes.
You went outside and you saw a person walking about. Is that accurate?
I didn't go outside, I just looked up.
And I apologize, I said that now a second time. When you looked out, that after the shot, you saw somebody lying on the ground,
Yes,
and you saw somebody walking around,
standing up, yes.
standing up. Did you see that person walk around at all?
I don't remember.
At some point, your husband then went outside, correct?
Yes,
Did you see that person who was standing up talking to your husband?
yes,
Okay, so the person who was standing up earlier was the person talking to your husband, correct?
yes,
Who you know to be George Zimmerman.
yes.
But you're not certain, as you sit here today, who was where in that altercation, are you?
No,
Because your sole comparison was a 12-year-old picture?
yes,
Thank you, nothing further on.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Based on your determination of height and weight and build, were you comparing the two out there?
yes,
And based on what you saw on TV, forget about how old the picture is of Trayvon Martin. If you were to hear that he only weighed 158 pounds, and Mr. Zimmerman,
Your Honor, that is.
I'll be glad to rephrase the question. Okay. Did you believe Trayvon Martin was skinnier and smaller than George Zimmerman?
Objection, Your Honor. The proper predicate. She's testified to, I don't want to speak to the person, the proper predicate.
Overrule, this is redirect.
Mr. Zimmerman, based on what you observed, was bigger than the other person, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Meeting.
Sustained.
You've already testified in direct testimony and in cross-examination that Mr. Zimmerman was the bigger of the two individuals, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Overrule.
Mr. Zimmerman was the bigger of the two individuals you saw out there, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. That is a mischaracterization of the evidence.
Okay, overrule. She can correct whatever testimony she believes is not being stated correctly.
I'm sorry,
Mr. Zimmerman was the bigger of the two people out there, correct?
comparing the picture, yes,
Now, you were asked about the comparisons. Mr. O'Mara asked you about interviews you gave to the police, number
Yes.
to Detective Serino, and then also to FDLE.
yes,
Okay. And Mr. O'Mara asked you about the interview you gave to the FDLE. I believe that's kind of clear. Yeah. Lee, Mappers, what you showing?
Yes, you may.
That showed you Exhibit Q. Remember looking at that interview that you gave to Detective Crosby with FDLE on March 20th? Remember looking through that?
yes,
And you remember Mr. O'Mara asking you about, did you ever talk about a description of the individuals you saw out there? The person you saw stand up after the shooting, the person you saw on top?
yes,
And you stated specifically that they never asked you to describe the size of that individual. Do you recall that?
yes,
Okay. Now, isn't it true, ma'am, that 6 days later, if I may approach the witness, Your Honor, and mark this for identification.
You want to show us, counsel?
I apologize, Steve.
I would object to improper bolstering of the witness. That was never crossed on in cross-examination. It was
I-
never identified.
Okay, let him mark it for an exhibit and approach the bench.
showing you, I apologize.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll tell you what the market identification purposes only is. Take exhibit 2R. You were asked by Mr. Romero, and the other exhibit in front of you, that was the FDLE interview transcript of that, you were asked by Mr. Romero about whether you had on March 20th stated something about you could identify either person, and you recall that you stated already that you were never asked that question. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay. Now, do you recall March 26, 2012, where I went to your house and took a sworn statement of you, and I specifically asked you about the individuals, whether you could identify either one?
yes,
And you recall in that sworn statement on March 26, 2012, that you stated that I think Zimmerman is definitely on top because of his size.
yes.
Now, in addition, after that, ma'am.
Was
you
that
recall giving a
before or
deposition
after you saw the
Where
news?
you were questioned by Mr. West, where I was president, you were asked about the same matters, and also stating at that time that you could identify Mr. Zimmerman because you had seen him on TV, photographed on TV, and that based on his size, it was Mr. Zimmerman on top.
Yes,
That's not credible. That's not, you, that's ridiculous. How would that even be a thing? Fine.
Regarding the two individuals you now know as Trayvon Martin and Mr. Zimmerman, you never saw Trayvon Martin actually stand up, did you? He was on the ground the whole time, Trayvon Martin, you never saw him standing up.
at that time, I don't know who they are. I know one is down, one is standing up.
He never got up after being shot and walked around.
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions. First witness, we do
Yes.
So I just have a question here, if I might.
You might have a what?
Question?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
If I wouldn't mind the exhibit as well. Oh, no, I'll take it from you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Yes, please. I want to focus your attention on 2R for a moment. I think Mr. Delarionda said that, didn't you say these words? Okay, so the guy on top to you appeared to be bigger, and your answer was yes, right? That's what you
Yes.
said?
Yes,
In all fairness, that's a bit out of context, isn't it? Let me approach the witness, Your Honor. Let's put it in maybe a touch more context. Can we do that by having you read the 2 or 3 sentences before that, okay? I want you to read it out loud, so the jury can hear you well, and that Mr. Delarionda can hear you. Oh, it's just 3 lines before what you had to read. Page 2 or 3 at the bottom. Let's start right with Mr. Delarionda's statement. Just read that out loud, if you would, slowly.
how would you describe their physique at all? Of the guy on top or the guy on the bottom?
Okay, go ahead. And what was your answer?
I know after seeing the TV of what's happening,
And then, I'm sorry, then what did you say?
and then Mr. Diano say, okay, and then I said, comparing their pictures,
Keep going, then go to the point that Mr. Delarionda had you focus on.
I think Zimmerman is definitely on top because of his size.
But again, not because you had independent thought that he was on top, but only because you compared the pictures that we just talked about, right?
Yes,
That was the only reason.
Objection, Your Honor, be on the scale of the direct.
Hoping this is the last question on recross.
It is, Your Honor. So the only basis for your comparison, again, was not, as you said, in response to the redirect question. You just thought he was on top because you thought he was on top, but only because of the comparison of the pictures of the 12-year-old child, right?
yes.
Nothing further.
Thank you. You get the last questions because this is your witness, and you redirect.
The person who was on top is the person who got up, right?
Yes,
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. May Ms. Manalo be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. You are excused.
thank you.
Thank you. The state, please call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State will recall Ms. Ramona Rolfe.
This is the 911 lady again.
If you'll please swear in the witness.
I do, thank you.
did say he turned him over.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello again, Ms. Rump.
Hello.
I think when last we left, we were talking about the 911 calls in connection with this case, specifically 3 of the 911 calls. And we were going to make sure that we knew the disconnect times. If I could take you back, I think you testified earlier that what I'll call the Lauer call, and that is incident number 1669, connected at 19:16 and 11. Were you able to tell us now the disconnect time for that call?
Yes,
And what time is that?
19:18:40.
Thank you, ma'am. And I guess for those of us who maybe don't speak military times, that 7:18 and 40 seconds PM?
Yes,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
I'm going to move to incident number
Voice is still
1680.
going.
That is what we've labeled the Serdica call. The connection time, I think you testified to that, was 19:17:06. Was that correct?
Yes,
And were you able to tell us the disconnect time for that call?
yes,
What is it?
19:31:35.
Thank you, ma'am. And finally, as it relates to the 911 calls, the good call, which is incident 1686, I think you told us that the connection time was 19:17:15. Could you tell us the disconnect call, please? Disconnect time, please.
19:03.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, as it relates to the communication center, you told us that there are 2 separate numbers, 911, and I think you called it the non-emergency or administrative line.
That is correct.
What is the phone number for that line?
688-5070.
Is that area code 407?
I'm sorry, yes,
So 407-688-5070?
yes,
All right. And we'd also previously discussed, and I'm going to move to those now, additional non-emergency calls placed to that line beginning August 3rd of 2011. You remember that discussion?
yes.
And I think we had played the first one. If I may approach your honor. Show you what's already happened. This is 171, which is the reporting, and 172, which I believe are the accompanying paper reports that you earlier referenced.
The cabinet, that's correct.
There are a total of 5 of those.
Yes,
All right. I'd first like to start, I guess, let's go chronologically, if you would. The
Oh, look,
first one
They got in.
of those 5 was dated when?
August 3rd, 2011,
And about what time of day?
at 18:45.
If I may publish, your honor?
May.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to maintain my continued objection, Your Honor, for these and future similar calls.
You may do so, and your objection is sustained, overruled, I'm sorry.
so this one is August, so this is still, this is pre-neighborhood watch coordination. But burglaries had apparently happened by this point. Oh, look, they're having technical difficulties.
It was all the way down. Go for it. Thank you.
Central Police Department, line is recording, Peter.
Hey, our neighborhood got burglarized or robbed today, and my wife, I saw one of the kids that did it, and we see someone that matches his description in the neighborhood right now again.
Okay, what's your address out there?
I don't know give out my address because he's obviously in the neighborhood, but it's Retreat View Circle. You can use 1111, which is the clubhouse.
Okay, so does he live in the neighborhood or he just got
I
lost?
don't know. It's the first time I've ever seen him.
Okay. And what is your name?
My name is George
Your last name, George?
Zimmerman,
And your phone number you're calling from?
407-435-2400.
Okay, and is he white, black, or Hispanic?
Black.
What's
My
your
wife talked to the type of walker and gave him a description of the guy we see now.
Oh, shit.
driver, just so we can make sure we're going to the right?
Yep, there's in the garage, there's a silver Nissan Xterra.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Here, I'll just, him calling. We've heard him already.
Okay, we've already got an officer heading that way, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure, thank you. You too.
I'm
Bye-bye.
actually just gonna fast forward through them all.
Ms. Rumpf, what is the next call and date and time in chronological order, please?
Thing like a dispatch or a field report where they make.
No report taken.
Thank you. No other questions, Your Honor.
Okay. And the people that Mr. Zimmerman called in about, correct?
On this particular call, they did a field contact report.
Walter and Bentley and fill around the fact. Okay, George, what's your telephone number you can be reached at? 407-435-2400. Okay, we'll get one out there. Thanks for calling. Thanks, guys.
And Ms. Rumpf, do those CAD reports, are you able to tell from those if, you mentioned earlier that you update or change events in that system as things go on. Do any of those reports indicate whether the police actually made contact with anybody in connection with any of those incidents?
Yes, on 2 of them.
Which 2, please?
Just one moment, please. On event 2011-218-2217, which would be dated August 6, 2011, we did make contact with 2 subjects.
And what was does the code that's entered in the records tell you sort of what happened or if anything else happened beyond that?
On this particular call, they did a field contact report.
So there's nothing beyond that?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. What was the second one?
The second one was dated August 1st, 2011, and we came in contact with 2 subjects. And
I'm sorry, August 1st?
August
I'm
2nd.
sorry, October 1st, 2011,
Oh,
and we came in contact with 2 subjects.
Okay, so and again, no further,
No report taken.
thank you. No other questions, George?
Yes, thank you. Let's start with the last person, Ms. Norton, if we could. So, on the call of October 1st, 2011, police were dispatched, correct?
Correct.
And they actually found the people that Mr. Zimmerman
so she
called in
doesn't know
about,
anything
correct?
about him.
They ran 2 names, yes, sir.
Right.
2 subjects, yes, sir.
That's in response to the phone call, right?
Yes, sir.
That was the phone call where he said it was late in the morning, wasn't it? Almost 1 o'clock in the morning?
0053 hours, yes, sir.
And there were 2 black males in a white Impala hanging out by the gate in their late 20s, early 30s, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does that form tell you anything else about the contact with those people?
No, this one does not.
Did it tell you, for example, that they were residents or not residents?
This one does not.
Would it have been a field contact even filled out if they had been residents?
You would have to ask the responding unit that on that particular
Yeah.
case.
Okay, good. Who is that?
The responding officers on this case were, just one second. Officer Jack Murray.
Murray?
Yes, sir.
Agency?
Sanford Police Department.
Okay. So he would be able to clear up for us and fill in more of the facts about this case, correct?
Correct. And there's also another officer,
Yes, ma'am.
Officer Jordan Beecham, also Sanford Police Department.
Okay. And describe what exactly a field report is. Just when officers do respond?
It's when you come in contact with the person and you're just obtaining basic information on the person.
Gotcha. There could also have been additional paperwork generated by Sanford Police Department, correct?
On this particular event,
Yes, let's say yes on this one.
if it was, it would not be to my knowledge.
It doesn't all go to, you're just looking at the non-emergency or 911 call data, correct?
Correct.
And that ends with something like a dispatch or a field report where they may send it back to you. We did a field report on this incident.
On this particular incident, sir, they cleared it with a disposition of V Victor, which is an indication of no report.
Gotcha.
On the other event, the disposition code was a Q Quebec, which is field contact, which means that they did obtain the information and one of the subjects did live there.
Okay. So let's then go to the other field contact, one on 8/6 of 2011.
Yes,
That was the concern about the youth matching the description of a previous recent burglary, correct?
correct.
Okay. And there was a field contact with that?
On this, there was.
Okay. And it was identified that one of the people lived in the subdivision, correct?
If I remember correctly, yes, sir.
Now, do you know on the 2212 event? Let's go to that one for a minute.
Okay.
Were you aware that the person who was identified in that report was arrested for a burglary in that neighborhood and he lived in that subdivision?
No, I'm not aware of that. It's not indicated.
So we talked about 8/6, 10/11, I'm sorry, 10/1/11.
Yes.
Any other information on your discovery besides what you've talked about so far?
No, sir.
You've had a chance, have you ever been a dispatch or a 911 operator yourself? Is that how you moved up the ranks or no?
Yes.
Okay, so you've actually probably listened to, I'm going to guess, thousands of these calls?
Yes.
Okay. You've heard these here today, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Individually, and then as a whole, individually, the August 3rd, 2011 phone call, did you hear anything of concern to you and Mr. Zimmerman's voice, the way he was presenting himself?
What?
Sustained.
Who would be here at the bench now?
No, you can call her as your own witness.
Can I call her now, out of order?
No.
So not to waste her time or ours?
No.
I don't understand what just happened. I couldn't hear his objection.
Is there anything in your database that would suggest that 212 event? Let's go to that one for a minute. Is there anything in your database that would suggest that the system, those who view the system, had any concerns with 5 calls over 6 months being placed by one? Okay. Individually, and then as a whole, individually, the August 3rd, 2011 phone call, did you hear anything of concern to you and Mr. Zimmerman's voice, the way he was presenting himself?
Sustained.
Still didn't hear it.
And would be here at the bench, Ron?
No, you can call her as your own witness.
Can I call her now, out of order?
No.
So not to waste her time or ours?
No.
No.
Please.
Here we call Rachel Gentel.
Okay. So we are going to stop this one here. Okay, because this next lady takes a long time, and it goes into the next day. So this is the end of this part. So I mean, they're poking holes. Defense is poking holes in the credibility of the prosecution witnesses, and I mean, doing a relatively decent job at it, I guess. So I got questions. So yeah, we'll get the other one pulled up and we shall start that one. I will end this one.
There's a sign up here that says on air.